So this will kind of be by itself now, and then I'll basically redraw it into the work where I want it to be.
Oh, probably in the other video.
Huh? No, this is, unless you stick your hand right underneath this.
Mhm.
So this was something I had on a, here, I'll grab the Post-it. You should see
The Post-it.
the original sketch for this.
All right, show us the original sketch. The orange
I think
Post-it.
the dog ate one of my sketches. One
Oh,
of
you
the
found it, I think,
Post-its.
didn't you?
That's the original sketch that I made.
Huh. Huh, there you go.
And then that turned into this. As you can see.
So that one can see.
Yeah, oh yeah, I forgot. I actually like to play with just design elements sometimes before I get to the piece, just like I was using this as an experimental board for some oil on a clay board.
Oil on clapboard?
Yeah,
Mhm.
and so I was playing with some sort of nouveau-ish.
Can I touch it?
Yeah, it's all dry. This was straight onto the clay board. The clay board itself is a very
Suck up
archival.
the oil?
It sucks the oil up, which is kind of why I like it for this, because I can do some line-based oil,
Right.
right? So this was just oil on a. With,
Ampersand clapboard?
there was no medium. It was oil and thinner,
Oh.
Gamsol.
Oh.
So, because when I noticed that when I use the the medium, the lines, the strokes tend to level out and blend in.
Oh.
But if I use the Gamsol, it evaporates very quickly. Huh? What?
I need a pencil. But
You need a pencil.
yeah. Do you have
It's
that
very
on,
sharp.
Do you have that on fixed focus?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, what is that for?
So I could write that to you instead of asking you.
Oh,
Looks like funky wood grain.
this? Yeah, it kind of does. And if you isolate certain patterns in there, and you think about it in terms of like mirroring it as a design, and then you take the design and turn it. So,
This looks like an eye.
well, yeah, or some sort of a head plate,
Mm-hmm.
or something. And I do that a lot. I'll mirror the image and see what it looks like,
And then redraw it, right?
yeah, and then redraw it, at a 3/4 view or whatever,
Right, right.
so that it's not completely symmetrical.
Pull this one down. So.
This one is a it looks very symmetrical, but if you actually were to flip it, it's not mirrored at all.
Oh no! Look, there's none
some
this big.
yeah, none of the actual lines.
Detail.
Yep. Except for possibly just the exterior line of some of these, and not even that too much.
Very nice.
Right.
This desk. Someone's asking about what kind of desk is it?
This is a desk that I got. It was I actually got it. It's called a Centurion.
Centurion.
Yeah, it's a recast of a 1920s like a drafting table.
With noodles on it.
I put those on there because I stick my feet on there, and the bar hurts my feet when I'm bare feet. So I know it's like I trashed my desk,
Oh,
but
this is Larry, the landlord mama asked that.
oh, cool.
He gets voted for best name for
Cool-
the night.
cool name.
Larry, the landlord llama.
Yeah. Now I can't think of llama without thinking of Llama Drama. That children's book we used to read.
Mama, save the drama for your mama.
Yeah.
Llama drama.
Mama Drama, Llama Drama.
Yes.
But
Okay.
so
What do we
anyway,
draw?
so this desk I got.
From
I
a lady in Ohio, right?
Yeah, well, I don't know if she
No,
was in
no.
Ohio.
We were
This
in
one
Ohio.
this desk was in Ohio because it used to be at the whatever Playhouse in next to Cincinnati. Yeah, and she had loaned it to the Playhouse, and then she traded it to me for
Mm-hmm.
to take it to Comic-Con and display it and get her more
Get orders and stuff.
yeah
All right,
visibility.
what are we going to draw today?
I don't know.
All right, here.
I never know.
Well, while you're figuring it out, I'll show them.
Armoros. Yeah,
Oh, you have to move my chair. Oh.
that's all right. The light's okay. So that was a piece that is my take on one of Peter Moorbacher's pieces for Angelarium. He asked me to do it, so I did it. Well, I'm still it's 99% done now. So, and it was I think the name was Armoros, the Unmaker, sort of an angel of undoing, of deconstruction or entropy, I would think. So. Oh, under the light? Yeah, this is what we're talking about. So.
Yeah, Okay, you can see her a little better.
Yeah, I have the 4K camera set up to just above this line right here, and
So
all the
you
way
can
down to the
see her.
bottom. So, but this is all oil on clay board, and I started off with a finally, yeah, it's actually gesso board. I started off with an acrylic under. Basically, it turned into an underdrawing as much as I put into it with acrylic paint, and then I went back over it and with oils and and made some texture and stuff. So a lot of this is layered texture built up with very thin washes of oils that I would then I'd spackle with Gamsol, so it would eat through the oil and make a kind of a dot pattern on it.
Very nice. All right, I'll
So,
put her back.
all right.
All the lights have to change around when we.
So very often, I've been sketching like this lately. You know, I've been making essentially production kind of sketches, not design. Well, thumbnail essentially,
Yeah.
which I don't often do, but I just do it enough to remind myself of what I want to do now. Obviously, you looked at my Post-it note,
Yes.
so
Do you use a sealer on the original graphite, and if so, what do you use?
when I was working on the oil painting, I
Graphite.
well, I did an underdrawing
Yes.
that I spray fixed with just regular fixative,
Okay.
because all I needed it to do was not move until I got the oil on top of it.
Right, right.
And then once I got the acrylic, once I got the acrylic on top of it, it wasn't going anywhere either. But on my regular graphite, at the end, I'll usually spray fix it, and if it's on clay board and I do graphite, then I use that crystal clear.
Crystal clear, and then
The gloss,
if it's on paper, sometimes you use the matte.
Yeah, usually on paper I'll use matte, especially if it's a toothy paper. So
If you're sad, do you paint?
yeah, if I usually I get more angsty and sad. I say angsty, but it's not dismissive. I get kind of more. I feel like everything starts to get on my nerves when I'm not working, and then when I start working, it seems like everything levels out. So this is sort of, I guess this is my way of self-medicating. I just use my work to do that.
Good morning from Pakistan.
Oh, cool. Pakistan. That's awesome. I think that's the first time I've heard somebody say good morning.
Have you ever used a table 8 for your art? If so, what is your opinion on it? Light box?
I think it
table
means, yeah. A light box? Yeah, if I do sketches and I want to blow them up or do iterations of them, I love having a light box or a light pad to do quick iterations on top of other iterations.
Yes.
And sometimes if I'm working on a thin enough medium, I'll transfer my sketches using a light pad. If I'm working on board and I have to like if I want to transfer this to a piece of clay board, I'm going to scan it in and then use a projector and project it onto my board. So, but, or, well, no, but what I usually have been doing, like if you look at I'll have to pull up the actual original Armoros, the drawing, is like if I were going to do this again, I would project just the outlines, and then I would go back in and redraw almost everything by hand and let myself find different shapes so that it wouldn't become like a static reproduction of something I've already done,
Yes.
but a dynamic new drawing in and of itself with just guidelines in place. The same thing with figures. If I have a figure that I've
That's
done,
what you did with
yeah,
the Armorist.
yeah, if I have a figure that I've done, I don't want to just reproduce it again. I want to go back in and find the liveliness of the original, or the spontaneity of the actual original creation.
Yes. Caitlin asked if we have an art printer for our own prints. Yes,
We do.
We have an Epson 7890.
Yeah, which will do up to 24 inches
24
wide.
inches by 24 inches wide by.
So there was a time when I would do my sketch. I would do a drawing like this, and then print the drawing on a board, and then paint on top of the drawing. But I sort of fell out of the habit of doing that because I started liking to do more and more of it traditionally, and I kind of like, it to be traditional from beginning to end, with the exception of projecting my sketches up there, and
Yeah, Epson
So-
7890. Would you ever? Oh shit! Sorry.
you fell down. See, that's
No. This part of.
and if you step on that, it'll spin, and then my desk will go down.
Well, yeah, that's what I just did. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't go down fast. But
Would you ever consider yourself doing a speed drawing? It would be nice to see it.
a speed. I don't know what that is. I mean, I know it.
He doesn't work on.
speed drawing, I don't, when I do concept work, I guess I move faster but in terms of a speed drawing, I don't think I'm a person who makes good decisions quickly. With the exception of like being in an emergency, I can do that kind of decision making quickly.
Yes.
But this kind of stuff I like to look at and dwell on. And in terms of a speed drawing, I do have some stuff up like on some of our previous videos on Instagram where I've done some things like 30 or 40-minute drawings, you know. But for me, a speed drawing tends to, you know, just look like weird, you know, shapes that are kind of
talking about a
abstract.
time lapse. Yeah, we have.
Oh,
some
I could do it.
time
Yeah,
lapse.
we could do a time lapse. That's yeah.
We do.
I have some, and I'll continue. We'll do some more of those. I haven't done a time lapse in a long time.
Hello from Mexico.
Hello, Mexico.
Senior Alan Williams.
That's awesome. I looked on our demographics, and we have a lot of people that watch from Mexico, which is, you know, great. I like it.
Oh, she wants a time lapse of a full drawing though.
I'll have to do that. Yeah. That would be. I think what would be cool is if I could do a time lapse and a full length of the same drawing,
Yeah.
and then people could and then sync it so that people could click through it and then find the frame if there was something happening that they wanted to go to in the real time and just go there and watch it.
Sounds like a lot of work for me.
It does, doesn't it? Well, we could hire somebody to do it.
That is true. That is true. Hello from Santa Fe.
Hello, Santa Fe.
It's Christine Poole.
Oh, hey, Christine Poole,
Yes.
Mark Poole's daughter.
No.
I'm
Colin.
kidding. I'm just kidding. Oh,
Santa Fe.
I'm sorry. I was thinking. Isn't her
I'm
name?
thinking about.
What's her name? Isn't Mark's daughter her name Christine?
It is.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And
See,
his last name is Poole, but that's for the wrong Poole.
Right. Okay. So I'm not entirely out of the park.
No,
by saying-
you're not.
All right. Hello, Christine. If you haven't seen it, Christine and Colin do the most amazing sculptures in the world. And I'll go ahead and put that out there and say
No.
some of the most amazing sculptures in the world. I don't think they would let me get
Their
away with saying.
Instagram is KC Poole Artists.
Yeah. Beautiful work. So, I have noticed that if you have any organic shapes and then you put enough reticulation, like, you know, striations or repeated lines into it, it automatically, without even trying, starts to feel like reminiscent of Giger, or, you know, Geiger.
Because he's so.
Because that's something he's become so synonymous with, is that repeated vertebral shape, you know.
Right, right.
But it's funny because I did that bit of Armoros over there that has a sort of a Giger ribcage look to it. I was looking at an alligator skin.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was on the alligator, but it was the skin. It wasn't a dead alligator. It was a picture of a living alligator, but it just has
There's
those.
lots of dead alligators here.
Well, I know. When you live around
Lots of alligators.
Mississippi and Louisiana, you can pretty much go into any convenience store or place and they'll sell something of a
Yeah,
dead
I know.
alligator. So,
Christine said they're both checking in.
oh, hello. Say, both.
They love your drawing.
Oh,
They picked up a drawing and we picked up a sculpture.
yeah.
Wow.
She's sitting on our in our bedroom on the dresser.
I know.
What's the name of that piece? I have to ask Christine. What is the name of the
Centaur.
little centaur girl that we picked up from you guys? I don't know the name. I reacted to it visually.
I know. I also don't know. Can't remember Doug's name. The piece I have of Doug's either.
Doug?
Doug Stanton.
Oh. Oh, you mean the guy with the umbrella?
Mm-hmm. Need to put little cards underneath them.
Yeah.
Dance of the Centaurel.
Oh, that's cool. Is that what you?
You know, we were noticing the negative space in the piece.
Yeah, it was like how perfectly placed the negative shapes are around her form when you look at it, when you spin it, and how her arms sort of, like, you get to one angle and it's just like a compositionally perfect piece.
You know, and then
Like-
actually because she's on our tall dresser,
Yeah.
if you look low, you can see that those angles all work from no matter whether
Yeah,
you're standing
'cause
right in front of her or whether you're
Yeah,
low.
where we noticed it was when she was up on the mantle.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
when she was up higher.
So very often I'll start with just kind of figuring out pleasing shapes and textures that I like. or just kind of I'm turning off. And I mean, I don't think about it very much when I'm doing kind of stuff like this. It's more explorational, just sort of like uh, I get kind of quiet mentally and just kind of follow things and see where they lead. And things just sort of, and it's they just sort of, it's like I guess they just start happening subconsciously. It's almost like a stream of consciousness, drawing in a way.
Christine says the drawing is in their bedroom too. First thing Colin sees when he wakes up.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm glad they like it. That was a fun piece to do too. They have uh,
And the heart.
the storyteller, huh?
You've gotten so far into it, not very far, but far enough into it, and you went, "This is on Gesso board, and it's going to take me longer."
Yeah.
But I like what it's going.
Well,
What it's
it's
doing.
I don't
Yeah, keep
I haven't
going.
done a lot of fully rendered graphite on gesso board because the gesso bites the pencil. So if you want a subtler shade, it's a little more effort to get subtle
Right, right.
with it. But I figured it out. It just took a while. You know, the clayboard's the same way though. I mean, if you draw straight onto clayboard, you can erase forever. It'll erase back to white. But
the
it's kind of
powdered graphite gives you a kind of a base. To,
yeah. It's very difficult to damage gesso board or clay board when you're drawing into it. So I guess on some level, I'm thinking I must. This is the part I had a post-it note that I wrote, where the decision-making process for me, when you see me draw, this is sort of a result of decision-making that's going on, sort of intuitively or internally. So it's kind of invisible, like I just sort of grow things out of the board, but. I've been trying to think about what it actually is, and I feel like it's a subconscious response to shapes played against what is it they call it? Shape hierarchy, where there's smaller shapes, smaller rhythms placed against larger, more broader shapes to create like a kind of a visual rhythm. I think I started paying attention to that after working with Del Toro, and he started mentioning visual rhythm in terms of drawing organs. Like an open body has a sort of a shape hierarchy to it. If you look at the smaller organs, and then they lead into larger shapes and then smaller shapes again. That's back when we were working on Mountains of Madness. So.
Oh, from Brazil.
Oh, hello,
And
Brazil.
Chile, Arizona desert.
Wow. Is it well? Is it chilly in the Arizona desert? I guess it is.
Could be. It was chilly here the other day, and now it's hot again.
Yeah.
To see you draw so fast, what an amazing skill.
Oh, thank you. What I have to say is that it's fast. It's fast to do a drawing when you're just doing a random kind of exploration. It gets slower and more careful when it's more purposeful, and I know kind of a direction. Like right now, it's like when they talk about doing film work and they talk about blue sky. This could be anything. It could go in any direction, so I can move faster with it. But as it gets closer to being something, it starts to slow down and become more conscious decision making.
Right.
For me anyway. So.
Well, it seems.
And I actually wanted to say that I'm starting to work on the next. We're starting to work on the next gallery show. I'm starting earlier than I started last time, so hopefully.
Hello from Panama.
Oh, hello, Panama. Panama's cool. Hopefully, I'll get more painting into it. The last show we did was the Copro show Covenant, and I had 26 pieces.
Yes.
26 pieces in the show, which they said was a lot, which I thought it was light. I thought I didn't have enough, but apparently I had enough.
Need more.
Yeah.
I'm a harsh taskmaster.
This is true.
What are you making there?
I don't know.
You don't.
Huh?
People are probably like, "What is that?"
So this could be like if I were into more making biological creatures, I think I would have fun doing like bony ridged head plates of dinosaurs, because that's kind of what this kind of reminds me of.
Definitely looks like a bone
So,
on the left hand side.
It does, but to me it also kind of looks like if you were to like do this part as the upper part of the body and then do almost a human torso from here down.
Ew.
That's kind of the kind of thing that I see, because you could. I love doing the shadows under like the rib cages and the striations of a sinewy form. I I like sinew more than smooth, I guess you could say. That's probably in part why I stopped doing so much pinup early on, because pinup tends to be very smoothly drawn.
Yeah,
And I like sinew and wrinkle more than I like.
I live from England. Boy,
Oh.
it's late in England too.
Yeah, it is. That's cool. So sometimes I'll do stuff like this, and then I'll think to myself, okay, I'm going to probably put a more realistic arm here somewhere. So I'll do that when I can sit and look at an arm for a few minutes. Or I'll bring out one of my, I have multiple figures around here that I can look at an arm and a shape, or I could actually just throw in just a placeholder kind of a thing. I do that a lot. I'll throw in placeholders, which are
Yeah,
roughly
erase them
drawn,
all.
and then redraw them if I need to. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I like the stylization of just throwing in you know, a representation of an arm instead of a real arm, you know?
Right, right.
So I have think that stylization happened originally because people were sketching and they started to realize that this was their sketches were had more energy than sometimes just reproducing, you know, a live figure
Mm-hmm.
or a photograph. Uh, and I kind of have done both. I haven't done a lot of live figure drawing, but I've drawn from a lot of photographs before, and I think that it's interesting because to me, I don't like stylizing everything. I like kind of having a balance of stylized form and abstract form with realistic form, which is kind of the same thing with Emerald. With if normally with something like Armoros, I would probably work into it realistic human hands at some point, something in it to have a foundation to say that this is a metaphor instead of trying to make it a creature, you know,
Right.
because a lot of times I think I don't really think in terms of these things being biologically real. I think in terms of what, you know, of them being like more metaphorical representations of something like in your mind, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like just like a lot of the people who do like I guess it's qualified as dark arts stuff. That tends to be about mortality, I think, more than anything, because they focus so many times on skulls and skeletons, and I think it's cool in that way, and that people misunderstand it a lot and think it's about, you know, being, you know, negative or dark. And to me, it's more about this is just somebody trying to understand life, their mortality. You know, of course, everybody has their own meaning. I don't like to assign meaning to anyone else's work.
Is that a 4B?
This is a 6B. Tombow Mono 100 6B.
6B. Your weapon of choice.
Yep. So you could see where, like, if I were to lay this out on a piece of gesso board or clay board, and then and I would spray fix the pencil part, and then I would go in with this kind of light wash here and just start making marks and patterns on top of it. These things would start to suggest different types of shapes and textures on top of the ones that I already have.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I have the most fun doing usually, you know. And then at some point, like I said, I like to work in some like not hyper realistic, but a realistic aspect to it as well.
Sure.
Whether it's in the light, because I could actually model this in something like ZBrush real quick and get a representation of light and how it would actually fall on it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would use that as a map, but then have to think back into it because you know, lighting in digital programs is a thing to master in and of itself,
Right.
and I just get enough of it to get an idea, and then try to I work from there and just try to make it look right.
Mm-hmm. Said quite nice, bro.
Oh, thank you.
And awesome.
That's very kind. So. That. So this kind of stuff is lightly done, and it suggests a pattern that I'll go back and define. And I don't even really usually have to erase the stuff that I put in underneath because I draw darker on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that, like, I mean, the entire, like, the lightest part of this drawing will probably be darker than most of these lines here. That's the number one thing I see most of the time when people are starting with graphite. that they don't get enough coverage and value, and
Okay.
they'll end up like going and putting the shadows in and stuff, and then like leaving all this white, and the drawing ends up looking um, overexposed.
Oh,
Because if you look at, like my skin tone is and I am a pale human.
you are very
But my
pale
skin
here.
is,
It's true.
is not white, not even compared to this. So to translate this into a drawing, this would still have to, everything would still have to have a layer of graphite on it, even though it's
Right.
light, you just have to control it. It becomes an issue of controlling the values.
Gotcha. Do you ever deal with insecurities with your artwork? And is there any way to combat low self-esteem or insecurity?
One of the best ways to combat, I think, for me, having an insecurity about something is to realize that it's a part of the process and that it's actually really valuable in a lot of ways to feel like this isn't the best thing because it pushes you towards always doing better. If it gets in your way of doing work, like I'm not going to do anything because it's not worth doing, that's to me when it becomes a problem. And the only thing I can say to that is that when I've felt like that before, I get to a point usually where I realize that even though something I'm doing has been done before and it may not be the greatest thing, it's the next thing to get me to the next thing. It's a step.
Right.
So even if if I did something and I didn't like it, like I don't really care for the work that I did for the first 20 years of my professional.
Yeah.
I don't really look back at it and go, oh, I don't actually look at anything usually and say I'm really proud of it. I look at things and say, oh, I like this passage or this part of it, and I want to do that, better and bring it into something else. But
It's
it's
also to realize that everyone, no matter what level you are, has those insecurities.
no,
Sometimes,
that's
right?
that's exactly true. That it's actually, I think in a lot of ways it might even be a fundamental part of the process of getting to the work that you want to do is always feeling like you're not quite there yet.
So that
You
you
know?
keep doing it.
Yeah. It's that, what is it? Is it called the Dunning-Kruger effect when people can't realize their own shortcomings? It's much worse to think, to me, it's much worse to sit around and talk about how great, your work is. Invariably, the people who do that don't seem to just be able to justify it in the work. There's nothing wrong with feeling good about your work, though. There's not. But,
But you have to be able to see where you need to improve,
yeah,
right?
you've got to be able to see, I guess it started happening to me when I actually started looking at the people that I kind of idolized, and I was able to, for once, look at their work and say, oh, I would have done that differently. That doesn't work, that part of it doesn't, because I can't say that there's an artist that I like everything they've ever done. And it used to be when I was younger,
Especially yourself, right?
most especially myself. And like I said, in fact, it's very difficult to look back on anything and I will look at some things, like I said, and I'll like parts of it. But it's usually a fleeting moment. I just get used to not feeling entirely satisfied with things, and I get used to not letting that stop me,
Right.
which is the same thing about practicing.
Right.
Practicing does involve getting better at something, but it also involves getting used to how hard it is to do it.
Oh, right.
You know,
Someone asked if you can make money by drawing.
yes,
Yes, you
yeah,
can.
yeah, and that's what I do in different forms. I'll spend a third of my year, doing film work or contract work, and then the other 2/3 just drawing and painting the stuff that I want to paint in general.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a balance of contract. And there are definitely people who only ever do their own work for themselves.
Definitely people that only ever do contracts.
Yeah,
You have to find that kind of
But can you?
happy medium.
Most certainly. When I was younger, there was a ton of people that were perfectly willing to say no one could make a living doing art, And it took me a while to realize that as I got a little bit older, that usually the people who said that were either people who had never tried or people who it didn't work for them.
Right.
And so therefore they just ignored the fact that it worked for other people, But, I know a lot of artists who make a living at drawing, and painting, or just drawing too. Barlow, 90% of what he does is probably drawing.
Yeah.
Just like, Carlos Huente, almost everything he does is graphite as well. Both of those guys do a lot of color concept work, as well. But everybody loves, their pencils, and they do a lot of that.
Have you ever done work on Mylar or Duralar?
Yes, actually, I use Duralar as sort of a high quality tracing paper for stuff like this when I want to make sure I try to get most of the lines and to transfer it. And I've drawn on it before too. It's like that. It feels a little like the Yupo paper to me. It bites the pencil in a different way than regular paper does. I like it. I just haven't done a lot of it in terms of work for myself. I use it usually in process stuff.
Who is your idol?
I have a lot of idols, but when I say idols, I have a lot of people that I really love certain things that they do. Like I love a lot of the like. I mean, I love Waterhouse.
There's a whole bunch of them on the website.
Yeah, I have a posting about it, but I mean, probably a lot of the people that I love, you would guess that I love. Like, I mean, I grew up loving Geiger. Beksinski is another guy that I think is was just kind of brilliant in what he did. The guy that inspired Geiger, or one of the people that inspired Geiger, like Hans Belmier, was great in his time, and I remember looking at him a lot when I was in school.
Olga, the Dugins.
Oh, the Dugins, Olga, and Andrzej, Dugin and Dugina. They're children's book illustrators, and they do the most beautiful, finely crafted color pieces.
They're on Instagram.
Yeah, they're also on Instagram. I just repeated mostly what you said, but
sorry. That's okay.
But and I like Waterhouse, Jerome, Tadema, Leighton, a lot of those kinds of painters.
Who do we go up and see in Pennsylvania?
What now?
I just lost my brain.
In Pennsylvania?
Yes, at the museum.
We talked
Last
about
year.
going to the.
No, last year during the wedding.
Oh, there was the Rockwell Museum up there.
That's
Yeah. I think we went there. But that's not who we went and saw, though.
right. No.
I don't remember. But, Rockwell, I love him, Sargent. Even though I don't do a lot of, landscape stuff, I love the Hudson River school guys, the landscape guys, Church, and I love the Dutch painters.
It's going to drive me crazy now.
Yeah.
Who we saw. It's the whole family, remember?
Oh, no, that was Wyatt's.
Thank you.
Yeah, we went to
Wyatt's.
we went to the Brandywine.
The Brandywine. So I was like,
Yeah,
the hell man of a museum did we go to?
yeah.
They all
No,
run together now.
yeah, no, that's some beautiful work. So,
Robert asks, what are your views on education for art, degrees and whatnot?
well, let's see.
That's all in what you went.
No, I definitely, if I had it to do over, because I never graduated. I went to a liberal arts school and like focused on like art, but I didn't graduate. I started working doing illustration before the end of it, and I had some teachers that essentially took me aside and said, "Look, you're doing what you want to do, and it's not something that we teach here." I think if you can find a place that specifically teaches what you want, that it's super valuable, like an atelier. If I had to do it over again, I probably would have gone to someplace that focused on art instead of just a liberal arts school. But saying that, I also have found that almost everything I want to learn how to do, I can find a representation of online, somebody teaching it.
Right.
And I went to the Illustrators Masterclass a few years back when it first started, and that was worth more than 3 years of college where it was to me. Just because it's so intense and people share so much there, they're completely open about technical process and business and anything you want to.
Then you did a color theory class at intensive 2-week.
I did a color mixing class with Graydon Parrish
Bay Area.
at the Bay Area, yeah, and that was definitely where I tend to be more like I'll selectively focus on the stuff that I want to learn and then find some way to learn it. Rather than the general kind of stuff that they did for me in the liberal arts school. But that is what I learned I think the most valuable thing I learned in school was how to teach myself. Because it's just like when you learn martial arts, you're watching somebody do it, but until you've done it 1,000 times and felt it yourself, you don't really know it. And so essentially, martial arts is like this in that you have to do it enough that you teach yourself how to do it.
Right.
I have spent time and learned how to do things that I probably could have learned faster at a more traditional types, like an atelier or something,
Well,
where
he
they.
says he's struggling in deciding whether or not to go back for his MFA or when. Its value in today's day and age concerns me. I guess
It depends on, like, okay, if you're going to teach, I think they have a lot of, I think they put a lot of weight on stuff like MFA, uh, on degrees. I have never in an illustration job been asked if I had a degree.
right.
You know,
But if you're going to teach at a college or university or something, or that, like you said, right, the MFA means a lot. It
Yeah.
depends on where you're going with it.
yeah, it definitely
And sometimes
does.
it's hard to figure out where you are going with it.
Right. You know, and there's nothing wrong with getting a degree. It's just it all depends on the school. I think there are some great teachers even at liberal arts schools, you know, that are more generally focused on other things. It just depends on where you go and who you talk to.
He said, many thanks for your insight.
Oh, you're very welcome. I hope that helped. You know, it was a little bit roundabout, but
Well,
Yeah.
you have to kind of figure out where you're going with it.
Yeah.
It's a hard thing.
it kind of more depends on the teachers you get instead of where you go to school, I think. You know, if you find the right teachers and if you're the right kind of student. And by right, I mean, a student who can take it upon themselves to learn.
Yeah.
You
Like
know,
we tell the kids.
Yeah.
Sometimes you might not even like the teacher, but the teacher might be really good.
a good student can overcome even a poor teacher if they're a really good student. You know, and there are some teachers that aren't that great at but at communicating. But
Have you ever, have you been drawing since you were little, and how often do you draw now?
I have been drawing since the earliest drawing of mine that I can find when I was about 3, and I was doing birthday cards for my mom.
Yeah.
And
Dinosaurs.
of little dinosaurs and things that didn't really look like anything. But and how often do I draw now? It's most of my day when I'm awake. As an
When
artist,
he doesn't, he goes a little
and
bonkers.
when I don't draw, yeah, I do get a little irritated and start to go not with people in general. I just start stomping around the house,
Irritated with
acting bratty. So
No.
yeah,
Oh,
but
wait, let me
but
say.
what? Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say our website is alanwilliamsstudio.com. This video will be up on Patreon first, which is Alan Williams, patreon.com/Alan Williams, and then up on YouTube. YouTube is Alan Williams Studio. And what are you creating? Someone asks.
I don't know really what this is, other than it's going to be sort of vaguely humanoid when I'm done. It's kind of a creature, I guess. Well, I was going to say something, but I forgot what I was going to say now.
Sorry.
Um,
Someone asked if is it possible to teach yourself to draw?
It is. You know what? There's a lot of books out there that go through it. The number one thing you do is just pick up a pencil and start. To me, is you just start having fun with it. Whether you start trying to draw things that are standing in front of you or just drawing, the first thing to do is have fun, and make it a positive reinforcement kind of a thing. Like with kids, I think it's I know a lot of people talk about foundational stuff, but I think the most important thing to start with is the energy of exploration in terms of what drawing can be. And just because I had one of the teachers that I did have that was real good, that was amazing to me. His name was Ted Lanham. This was in a little community college. The first thing he did was he said, "Here, we had all these colored pencils," and he says, "Just draw things that don't look like anything." He says, "The only thing I want you to do though is use every color in the box, and play with it." And so we kind of learned how to explore and have fun very quickly, and we came out with some pretty outlandish stuff. But yeah, you can definitely I think you can teach yourself almost anything. I mean, probably with the exception of medical things.
Do you ever dabble in landscape?
I have a handful of landscape pieces, but I actually have been starting to feel an urge to do more because I would like to, have some more of the environment as part of the narrative.
Variation in, what would you say? Variation in perspective or scale? That's
Well,
what you were
yeah,
talking about.
because the environment would help show. Sometimes it's all about enforcing the narrative through the environment. In the images and stuff. So,
someone just discovered the live streaming aspect of Instagram.
oh yeah, that's
okay.
cool. Yeah.
What's the softest pencil you work with? Everybody's together. Everybody say it together now.
10B.
10B, Mitsubishi.
Mitsubishi Hayoni 10B.
That's right.
You can see it.
Do you do any type of drawing exercises before you draw things like this, or is this jump right into it? This is basically what it is.
Most of the time I sort of sit down and jump into stuff, unless I have a formal idea.
What's your
It's a Carl Angel
Carl
5.
Angel 5?
Metal, all metal.
Did you modify the thing?
Yeah, you go inside and you have to file off the lead stops so you
Yes.
get good sharp points.
Oh wait, show it on this one.
Oh,
Carl
the
Angel
Carl
5.
Angel 5. We have two cameras going, going at once.
You gotta do the whole. It's right over there.
Yeah. But and I draw from. It used to be that I would almost always just draw with the sharp lead, and I do sharpen my pencils sometimes, just excessively. But I get more textural definition, more of this tooth when you draw from the side with the broad face.
That's really that highlight right there is really bothering this one right here. It's this odd, that whole highlight there. It looks like a mouth.
Oh, does it?
Or something weird.
Eh.
I don't know. Oh, Mike's got some of those 10Bs. They are excellent pencils. They are.
They feel like painting because they're so smooth and buttery, but they don't erase. Like I said, they don't erase very well. I mean, anything that's a soft lead is not gonna, it's gonna be a little bit harder to erase. So you sort of have to be ready to use it when you use it. I mean, I will not really worry about it so much because I know that if I were to go back, I could erase most of this, and it would bring it back to an almost white page, and no matter what was left on it, would still be lighter than what my values are going to be when I put them down. So they wouldn't show up. The only times you get into problems is when you start gouging the paper or making grooves, and then that stuff shows up and you have to fix it,
Yeah.
But in terms of that other question about teaching yourself how to draw, I think that like fundamentally you do teach yourself how to draw. People teach, it's like learning how to, I keep saying metaphors because I want to, to drive it home. It's like learning chess, you can learn all the moves pretty easily from someone else.
Until you do it.
And then you
Over
sit
and
down and it takes you a long time to be able to become someone who plays chess really well. A chess master or whatever. It takes years to
Right.
perfect the game or whatever. Not perfect it, but master the game. And I think, it's the same way with anything. You can learn, like, I don't make marks much differently than anyone else does. I just have different places where I focus, and
Or all the decisions are.
my decisions are different, yeah. And that's the part that you have to kind of come to on your own. Nobody can teach you, what you think looks good. You can look at things that you just notice what catches your eye, and you can start to pick things and go, oh, I like this. Like I like Doré, Gustave Doré, because not just because his stuff is so, there's so much illumination in it, but and you can't see this, it's on the camera, but because there's always a texture even in the darks because of that mezzotint or the way that they etch the plates and
right,
stuff,
etchings and everything.
and so it's always has a bit of visual noise to make the piece kind of come together.
Which is,
in continuity.
very different than the way you would draw 10 or 15 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
10 or 15 years ago, it was you drawing and everything had to be perfectly clean
and smooth.
and the same smoothness throughout the whole piece.
Yeah, and it was really boring after the end. Because, I mean,
It was not. It was boring.
It actually visually was kind of boring. It's kind of boring to see something that's perfectly smooth all the time. In fact, people who do hyper-realistic paintings of bodies or faces and stuff, it doesn't end up looking smooth because they're actually picking up all the texture of the skin and everything. And you do actually have if you close your eyes, you can almost always see a noise in your visual field with your eyes closed. And I'm pretty much think that noise is always in your visual field. It's just that self-hypnosis that we have, that we ignore it,
Yeah. Oh, yes.
So, so that's one of the things I think why people like, grainy photography, that like the old black and white photography that has that beautiful grain to it,
Oh, yeah.
is because it reminds them, or it picks up on that visual noise and emphasizes it.
Oh, yeah. It says Dory is an amazing source of inspiration. I like to browse his images when stuck on something.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
The all of
Ellen
the Dante's Inferno stuff is great.
Ellen has
The
a great Pinterest page, Where My Eyes Linger. And
yeah,
there's like
that's
Dory and
yeah, that's back over here. Wait, not there. It's the Where My Eyes Linger is the one that everybody can see. It's the public one.
gotcha.
And then I have some that are I have a lot of them that are private that are just like inspiration boards that
Anna's asking if you have any reference for this drawing.
for this, no. I mean, I've got stuff that's around my desk. If you see up there, I've got like two fetal pigs. One's dark and one's light.
Yes.
And I have like bones and things that are around
And your
that,
scissors.
and my scissors. But I guess all of that stuff that I have around me, I kind of collect things that kind of go into my subconscious,
Yes.
and they bounce around, and then they'll come out in different ways. You know.
What is your advice towards an artist struggling to find motivation?
That's the thing about it is that that's usually what in order to teach an artist you have to inspire them, which is a way of saying motivating them. And I think it depends on what's causing you not to be motivated, but everybody has problems with motivation at different times. I just have got see what I should explain too, that I have like ADD, so I will bounce around a lot. But ADD people have a thing called hyperfocus, and I sort of over the years have trained myself to use that hyperfocus instead of playing video games or doing other things into the work that I do. So I can sit here and do this all night, and I have to have a timer to tell me to get up and walk around sometimes, and sometimes I just ignore it. uh, but I do tend to be somebody who can be easily distracted if I'm not careful. And you would think that stuff like Pinterest and the internet and social media and all that would be very detrimental to me. But I actually look at a lot of art while I'm doing art. I guess I've gotten to a point where I don't let it influence me so much as it inspires me to just go and do my own thing.
Right.
I look at the level of artists more than I look at specifically what they do.
Can you remember, just bouncing off this for me, or can you remember like when you were younger, what kept?
Well, when I was younger, I didn't get a lot done all the time, though. I mean, I can say that there was always a period of when you have to learn motivate. It's like anything else that has to be trained. It's like a work discipline to be motivated. Like, okay, so I can sit down and do an illustration with no motivation whatsoever, but I can still keep it at a professional level,
Right.
right? I don't want to do it, but I have to. But that's part of learning how to do it as a profession in terms of being an illustrator and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
some of it you have to get done because it's
right.
your job.
It never, the stuff that I don't like to do, but I do because, it's making a living. It never looks as energetic as my own stuff. But it's of a professional level that would usually, work in the whatever the product is that I'm illustrating for, whether it's a story or, there have definitely been concept stuff that I've had to do that I didn't. I had to draw octopus beaks for 2 weeks. It's hard to get motivated over drawing just
Yeah, I
octopus
can remember
beaks.
you called me and you're like, "This is pushing it, man.
Yeah.
This is kind of hard."
And that's not the easiest thing to stay motivated for, but
Do you like how this drawing is coming out so far?
you know what? So far, I do. I haven't really, I haven't really gotten to a point yet where I want to start to. I don't really judge it yet. What I'm doing is having fun with all these patterns, and if I can if I look at this, there's a rhythm that's here and one that's hinted coming down here, and I like the idea of those two patterns kind of coming together, and the fact that this might be in like a humanoid shape. Like I could get down to here, and then I'll have to go like look at like somebody in like jeans or something and give him like pants and a normal hand.
He's got something going on with him.
Yeah,
Christine asked, "Have you tried lithography?"
I did lithography in college in the regular liberal arts school, and I enjoyed it other than having to draw backwards. Because when lithography prints, it prints reverse.
Right.
We did. I have a piece of lithographic
Yeah,
stone in the other room.
That's the one that Mark was You were gonna go with Mark to do it with it.
Yeah,
Do
I
you?
like it. It's the process. Like there's a lot to know there because you have to know how to etch properly to you could do this incredibly beautiful drawing with the litho crayon and then just destroy it with the wrong kind of etching. You
Okay.
know, I think they're beautiful though. Some of the most beautiful reproductions and drawings that I've seen have been done on in lithography. So
Is graphite your favorite medium?
it's my most comfortable medium. So in that respect, yeah, I actually like looking at. I think my favorite medium is oil, but graphite is the one that is like my most natural. I don't know if that's the same thing.
And see,
Um,
I was what, like 2 years ago. I was like, because you have painted a lot in the past, but you
well, I
fell
used to
right
paint a
in.
lot more.
I
Yeah.
know, and I kept going. Okay, now you have to start painting, and you're like,
What's weird is that I sometimes hesitate to start painting because once I start painting, I just almost always just stop drawing.
you know,
And I just won't draw for like, I'll just paint though. I mean, it's the same thing. To
mm-hmm.
me, drawing and painting physically, they feel very much like the same thing.
We have
Uh,
about 10 minutes, you guys.
you know, and
So
obviously, even when I paint with color, you can see the armorous piece. I typically will do very monochromatic or very limited palette
so
uh,
how
pieces.
do you decide what to put on paper? I'm extremely indecisive.
You know what? That's the whole nature of the explorational stuff that I do. Is if I don't know what to do, I'll just sit down and start making marks until something starts showing up to me. And that's how I get through that because that happens to me too. I'll go, I don't know what I'm gonna like tonight. I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna draw. But when we sat down, and
But here's the big thing, though. I will say, even if this piece that you're working on right now is in your pad and everything, if you never come back to it, if it just kind of sits here, there might be elements that come out in another piece,
oh,
and you don't.
definitely,
It doesn't matter if it doesn't end up a finished drawing.
right,
I know a lot of people who want to start and finish something, and it has to be finished and sellable and be able to be framed and sold. And we have mountains and mountains of sketches and drawings that come to a point, and that's okay.
right. I don't take everything to completion, but I usually don't throw anything away. Um, I'll bring elements of bits and pieces of things. I have sketches that I start and then finish 2 years after I start them or 3 years after I start them.
That is
You know,
true. Yes.
you know, just because I'll start it and then I won't for whatever reason won't be ready to proceed with it. Maybe I'll think I have to let the idea sit for a while,
Yeah.
or it's just not, you know, for lack of a better term, it's not speaking to me at that moment. In terms of what I want to do.
Only Pencil says I do primarily realistic wildlife pencil drawings, and I love your work. I
Oh,
have such a passion for pencil, and you demonstrate the beauty that pencils can produce.
oh well, thank you very much. There's some beautiful stuff done in wildlife and realistic wildlife and stuff like that.
Does your preferred technique limit the subject matter you approach?
Only if I decide that I'm going to let it limit it. If I it, the, this technique of exploration tends to work very well with organic shapes and organic imagery. Uh, but if I want to do something that's like hard edged or more representational, I have a process for that too.
Right, right.
You know,
Sam said, "Thank you for the advice. It's really helpful
I hope so.
about the indecisiveness and everything."
I hope so. Being indecisive is not the a bad place to be. It's just that sometimes means that you're, especially if you're in a place where it's very difficult to decide what you're going to do. That's usually at a place you're in a place where you're sort of on ball and you're looking for something different. You're looking like just like I had a teacher once that told me that some of the best work that she did came out of like these times where she felt like she was the most upset and depressed, and it was because she was in that transition from what she was doing wasn't what she wanted to be doing, and there's a part of you that has to let go of that,
Right.
and so you have to kind of fight through it and get to the part of you that's open to this new thing, and then move into it.
Yes. Anya Arcane said, "Thanks for turning me on to the Tombow mono pencils and erasers."
Oh, you're very welcome.
I know, because sometimes you'll go to buy them and they'll be out of stock.
I love it. I love it. No, I do. It makes me feel good. Like I go to Jet Pens now, and sometimes the pencil, my favorite stuff, is gone, and I'm hoping that it's because I said something and they're getting, more sales
Yes.
because the more money that gets put into your favorite thing, the better you feel because they'll keep doing it, keep making it, keep developing it.
Joe Beth said, finishing is something I have trouble with, and it's good to know that not finishing a drawing isn't so unusual.
No,
I could show you, oh my God, we got
I have,
drawers.
and this
You look
thing
at all
alone,
the-
this
look-
thing alone has like 3 drawers of unfinished drawings that
All
I go
of
through.
the sketchbooks that have
Oh,
some drawings
yeah,
in them.
those, yeah.
Some
So
drawings.
sometimes I'll pull them all out and like lay them on the floor and
Yes.
cover my floor. And,
Hello from Vancouver. We're almost
cool.
getting to the end, you guys. So just if I tell you
it's-
you got 30 seconds and we're off of here, then that's why.
Yep.
I say thank you for sharing.
oh, you're very welcome. The most important thing is just to do, if you're trying to get motivated, is to trick yourself by doing just a little bit at a time.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes even just doing a study, pick a photograph and copy it. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Just do anything that gets your hand moving, even if it's only 5 to 10 minutes a day.
Yeah.
You know, little plus often makes much. Right?
Yes. And yes, these will be up on YouTube. I'll put them up on Patreon first, and then I will get them up on YouTube. I'm one behind though, because
Right.
there was one I didn't get to.
And something we've started doing. So, the Instagram video is vertical.
Right.
The video that's above me that's looking down is horizontal, so it'll be in like a TV format.
Yes.
So it's a little bit easier to watch on the screen.
On YouTube and everything. Yes,
Yeah.
although you won't be able to see the mounds of sketchbooks behind you.
but-
Do you varnish your clapboard work?
Uh,
Spray it with clear.
If it ends up in oil, if the final result ends in oil, then it gets varnished. If the final result ends in high
Graphite?
definition graphite, then I use basically a spray varnish, which is a clear coat, a gloss clear coat.
Gotcha. So remember to visit the website is alanwilliamsstudio.com. Patreon is patreon.com/Alan Williams. And our YouTube is Alan Williams Studio. So yes, they will be up on YouTube, but I'm behind in one of these guys because we had Thanksgiving and been getting back everybody.
And we left for Thanksgiving. We were
We
out of
did
town.
leave for Thanksgiving. It was a nice time away.
So one of the reasons I don't like taking breaks is because I let myself, when I'm not drawing and not working on a vacation type thing, I'll let myself be pulled away by all these different distractions that are fun. And then when I get home, I have to start shutting those distractions down again.
Yeah.
And it takes me usually a few days to get back into it. And I don't, those few days are very stressful to me.
Is
Not
they-
stressful like, car wreck kind of stressful, but relatively stressful based on my
Your
normal
stress is you walking around
Yeah. I'm just
in that
funky.
mood.
Yeah, I tend to forget to shower for a day or two. Or a week.
I said nothing. I said nothing. You brought it up.
I know.
I did. Sorry. Meant to say have a lovely day.
Oh.
Always grateful for your time and knowledge. Thank you as always for
Oh.
inspiring.
I'm grateful for having people watch and
Yes.
to ask questions.
Oh, and we have 30 seconds, you guys. There were some more questions there. Hello from Iran.
Oh,
and
hello.
thanks for showing the process.
You're very welcome.
See us. You'll see this up on YouTube. I'm one behind, so you'll see the next one first. And we will talk to you guys later. See you next week. We will be back next week.
Sounds good.